Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Super practical tutorial for you today. Let me show you what we're going to build. I'm going to share my screen. There we go. We're going to build this little simple animated hamburger trigger. And so when I click it, it goes to an X and then it morphs back and it's got that smooth little transition. But don't be confused. Don't get it twisted, okay? This little icon is going to teach you so much about web development. If there was a tutorial where somebody asked, hey, I want to learn web design and development, where should I start? I would actually perhaps start them with this little tutorial because it covers such a wide surface area of skills: HTML, CSS, attribute selection, tokenization, a little tiny bit of JavaScript, animation, not animation, more like transition. Okay. So much surface area is covered that I would say this: doesn't matter if you're a beginner or intermediate or even advanced. I would follow along with this tutorial, build what I'm going to build it with me. Let's do it together. Let's make it accessible. And you are going to learn so much, even if you don't actually need a hamburger trigger, or even if the builder you're using, like Etch, is eventually going to have this component pre-built for you. You just drop it in. You don't have to think about it. But does that mean you shouldn't know how to build it? No. Does that mean you shouldn't have the skills required? No. You need these skills because they are going to aid you in all other areas of your project. So without further delay, let's jump in and let's start building. I'm going to go ahead and add a section to my page. That's not really needed for this component. I just want the page to have a little bit of structure while I work. Inside of that container, I'm going to add a div element right here. Okay, this is going to be called burger. Now, why is it called a hamburger? Let me flip back real quick. You can see visually, right? Bread, meat, bread. Look, I don't like the name either, okay? But it's stuck. Somebody called it that. It's stuck. Everybody calls it that now. It is what it is. We got to live with it. But if you're wondering, why is he using the name burger? I don't like that. It doesn't make any sense. I didn't come up with it, okay? I didn't come up with it. This is what people call it. That's what we're going to call it. There we go. Okay, so inside of the burger, and I'm actually going to pull this up because I want maximum code visibility for this to make my life easier. Inside of that, I actually want 3 spans. So I'm going to say span times 3, and I'm going to expand that out. 3 spans are essentially just blank elements because each one of these spans is going to be a line. And so we're not going to use any icons for this. I know a lot of people like to go find a hamburger icon and stick it in, and then they go find an X icon and stick it in, and now they're doing all this SVG management, and then you really can't animate it the way that I showed because, you know, that's a bad situation. You don't have to do all that. We're going to do this. You're going to learn to build this thing from scratch, okay? And it's going to be even better than if you used icons. So what are we going to do now? Well, what I can do is add a class called burger, okay? And that's going to give me a class to style. And I can start with some things here. Like I can say my width, and I'm going to do everything static just to give you a heads up. Everything static, and then we come back later, we clean it up. We switch things to logical properties, we tokenize everything, but we got to get it working in static fashion first, okay? So let's say I did 28 pixels on the width. I did an aspect ratio of 1, and now you can see, look at that, I have a little tiny square, okay? Now I'm going to come down here, I'm going to use some nested CSS. So what this is doing is selecting all the spans that are inside of my burger. And I'm going to say I want these to display flex. I want their width to be 100%. I want their height to be 2 pixels. I also, by the way, with this burger, want this to be display flex, a flex direction of column, and a gap of like, let's just start with 5 pixels. Now you see these spans are like these little gray outlines on here. The page builders like this, because you have to be able to click things and select them, they add minimum dimensions to them. We need to override those minimum dimensions. So I'm going to say min width, for example, is 0. Min height is 0 on these spans. Now they can actually be lines like they're supposed to be. And in order to see them as a line, what I want to give them is a background color. Okay, so I'm going to say background color, and we'll just say red. And I should be able to see 3 red lines. I'm going to save, and I'm going to go to the front end of my website. And guys, that is really starting to look like a burger trigger, isn't it? I think it is. Okay, so we're going to keep going. Notice those 3 lines, and I can zoom in here so you guys can see. Notice the 3 lines are not in the middle of their box. They're floating towards the top of the box. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna click that and get back to my CSS. I'm going to say justify content to the center. And now those 3 lines are gonna be perfectly in the center of their box. Okay, now, do I want them to be red? No, let's change them now to black, okay? So let's save, let's refresh on the front end. That is looking really good for a simple little burger trigger. And I'll give you a little hint. If you want it to be softer on the corners and not a hard fixed rectangles, right? You can come in here and just say border radius of 50 VW, okay? And what that's going to do, it's ever so slight, but you can see the rounded corners on the very ends of these bars, and that gives just a very subtle, much softer effect. It's not so rigid, okay? All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to think about, okay, how are we actually going to animate this thing? Now, what you will see some people do, some people will add a class. So they'll use JavaScript to add a class like active or on or whatever, and that will handle the styling. I would not recommend doing it that way. We want this trigger to be accessible. The first thing we need to do to make it accessible, by the way, is make it a button. I got a phone call coming in. Make it a button. So instead of a div, I'm going to switch this to a button. That is step number 1. And by the way, you see it got some padding here. Browsers like to add default button padding. So what we're going to do is say padding of 0. And sometimes it adds a border. Let's go look at it on the front end. Okay, it did not add a border. So I just want to get rid of the default padding that it gave it. Okay, the next thing that we're going to do, because now it's clickable, right? Now you come in here, click, click, click. I can click on it. Okay, it's a clickable element. So now what I want to do is think about the start of accessibility. The start of accessibility, you have a trigger like this. You need an ARIA label, first of all, okay? So I'm going to use ARIA label equals, and then you also need ARIA expanded. So I'm going to put that in, and what are the values for this going to be? I'll say open navigation as the ARIA label, and then the ARIA expanded, I'm going to say is false. Now I'm going to add these, and it's going to put them right there in the HTML inside of Etch. That quick attribute bar in Etch is absolutely fantastic. So now if I go look at this on the front end, we should go and talk about this stuff and do this together. I see my button, class is burger, ARIA label open navigation, ARIA expanded equals false. And what has to happen when somebody clicks, whatever's going to open, this ARIA expanded has to change to true. So that has to happen for accessibility purposes. But guess what? It also should be the trigger for your styling changes as well. You don't want to put another class on there to trigger a styling change, because you could fail to do the necessary accessibility stuff even though the styling is changing, and vice versa, okay? Why not tie them together? It needs to be accessible, so let's make the styling changes based on it being accessible. Therefore, if it's not accessible, we also will see broken styling changes, and that should clue us in to like, hey, something is not working, and that thing is very important, okay? It's not just a styling issue, and it's not just an accessibility issue, it's both. It's either all or none here, all or none, okay? So here's what we're gonna do. We are going to base our styling changes off of this being true. And so I'm going to set it to true so that I can see what happens when it's true. And then I will worry about the JavaScript actually toggling the state back and forth. Okay. So what I'm going to do is come down and I'm going to say, and ampersand, right? And then square brackets. Let me zoom in here. Because the square brackets, first of all, the ampersand says, take whatever I'm about to write here and pretend like it's attached to this selector up here. So this would be, okay, do I have a burger with a specific attribute? And what is the attribute I'm looking for? ARIA expanded equals true. So this is going to look for any burger where the ARIA expanded equals true. Anything I want to happen is going to go inside of these curly braces. Now, what do I want to happen? Well, first things first, if I'm going to make an X out of these, okay, I only need 2 of them. I don't need 3 of them. Right now I have 3, I only need 2. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna select each of the spans individually. So I'm gonna say span, inth child, and then I'm gonna put the number inside, okay? And I won't even indent right now. So there's my selection of the first one. I need to not hit the keyboard shortcuts too quickly. And third one. So I can have 2, 3. So this one's going to select the first one. This one's going to select the second one. This one's going to select the third one. And I can show you color, blue, color, red, and color, green. Okay, so the first one should be blue. The second one should be red. The third one should be green when aria expanded equals to true. Let's go see. Oh, I'm sorry, not color, background color, okay? And there we see on the front end, first one is blue, second one is red, third one is green, okay? I'm selecting each span individually. Well, this one that's red, that's in the middle, what do we want to do to that one? Well, I'm going to scale it to 0. Look at that, it disappears. There's a little trick. Instead of going like display none or visibility hidden or anything like that, I'm going to go scale of 0, which is also going to allow me to animate that scale out. So it looks like it's being deleted, like removed is part of the animation, okay? So let's just go look. We're going step by step. Look at that. Remember, this preview of aria expanded equals true is fantastic because I can see what's going to happen in the next state while I'm designing the next state. That's absolutely fantastic. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the first one, okay, and I'm going to, let's come down here, and I'm going to say, what are we going to do? Rotate it. Let's rotate it 45 degrees. Let's come down here to this one, and let's say rotate of negative 45 degrees. Let's go the opposite direction. And now you can see they're actually starting to crisscross. The problem is when you rotate, it gets out of its original position. And we need to kind of translate it, which means move it. We need to translate it back into its original position, which is essentially the center of the box. And there's actually just a little bit of math that we can do to make we don't have to guess numbers, right? We can map this line back into the middle of the box. It is off by the gap and the height. Okay, so if I add the gap and the height together, 5 plus 2, that is 7 pixels. It's off by 7 pixels, okay? So if I translate this 7 pixels, it's going to translate, by the way, we come down here, translate accepts 2 values. You have the left and the right. You have the top and the bottom. It's 7 pixels too high. I'm going to translate it down 7 pixels. And I'm going to take the other one because this one is the opposite of the other one, right? So if I take this translate and I put it on here and I say opposite -7, guys, look at this. Look at this. I've just taken a burger and turned it into an X. And so now if I go aria expanded equals false, it's going to look like a burger. If I go true, it's going to look like an X. And all I have to do now is create a transition between them. And we can actually preview the transition by just manually switching that aria label back and forth, or that aria expanded true back and forth, okay? So here's the thing. What am I doing that needs to be transitioned, okay? We're rotating, we're translating, and we're scaling. So we're doing 3 different things that need to be animated. Now, when you're doing animation, transition. I keep saying it's visually an animation, but this is all really just part of the transition spec of CSS. When you're doing a transition, you don't transition the second half of it. This is a mistake that beginners make all the time. They do a hover style, for example, right? And they put the transitions on the hover instructions. Don't do that. Put the transition on the original element. The original elements are spans. That's what I'm transitioning. That's where the transition needs to be declared. So I'm going to say transition property, and here I can actually list 3 different properties. So I'm going to say, hey, we are rotating, we are scaling, and we are translating. So I'm just going to list all three of those. Then I'm going to come down and I'm going to say transition duration. And that's going to be my 0.3 seconds, for example, or you can do 300 milliseconds or whatever you want to do, okay? And then I'm going to say transition timing function. And this is going to be your like ease in, out, ease whatever, okay? I'm going to do ease in, out. And so now let's zoom out a little bit and see if we have a transition. Okay, false, true, transition property. Maybe I actually have to be able to click it in order to see it. Maybe I can't just change it here back and forth. So what we'll do now is we will work on the act. Well, you know what I can do? I have a cheat code. I still have a cheat code for you. Watch this. Just change this for now to hover. And so there you go. So now you can preview it, because we're just saying, okay, instead of doing that when the ARIA expanded changes, just do it on hover. And then we can actually see the effect happening in real time. And that is slick, boys and girls. That is absolutely, so you can't do that with two SVGs. I'll tell you that right now. That is, I mean, you could, it'd be way more of a nightmare, okay? This is slick and very easy, you know? Okay? All right, great. So fantastic. So now we're confident. I'm going to put the ARIA expanded true back. Now we're in a situation where we actually have to write some JavaScript. And that JavaScript is going to be, relatively simple. We're talking 3-4 lines of JavaScript. Now, we're not using the trigger for anything. If you brought in a mobile menu, we're going to have to add to the JavaScript, okay? You're going to have to do more with the JavaScript. But just the basics of, hey, let's change the ARIA expanded false to ARIA expanded true on click and essentially toggle them back and forth. That is relatively easy. And that's going to get us to our starting point. And then we're going to be able to drop this in as a component and use it wherever we want to use it. Okay. So I'm gonna move this over here. Notice I can do whatever I want with my panels in terms of getting more real estate, okay? And we're gonna get started with our JavaScript. Now what I wanna do is I wanna do document.querySelector all, and I need to figure out what am I going to select. Like, let's just get started. I got a select sign to be able to do something to it. Just like in CSS. If you're going to style in CSS, you got to select the thing that you're going to style. In JavaScript, if you're going to do some magic to it, you got to select it first. Query selector all is going to select all of the things that I tell it to select, because I might have more than one burger on a page trying to do this stuff, okay? So burger is the thing that I want to select, and I want to select all of them. Now, when you're doing an all, you need to say, okay, for each of these, let's do something, all right? So we're just going to literally say for each, all right? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an arrow function, okay? And let me close one thing over here. I got notifications popping up on my other side. We're going to say for each burger, we are going to do something. And what are we going to do? Well, we'll come down here to do it. All right, so I have essentially selected all of the burgers that are on my page, and I'm ready to start doing something. The first thing I need to do is add what's called an event listener. An event listener is going to listen for the click. Now, you can listen for a bunch of different things, but in this case, we want to listen for a click, which also, by the way, covers our keyboard accessibility, because a click in JavaScript is also an enter or a spacebar. So if we're talking about keyboard accessibility, that's already going to be covered by our click listener, okay? So we're going to say burger. We're going to take the thing that we selected. So I said for each burger, right? So I'm going to say, okay, now burger, we're going to add an event listener, right? And in JavaScript, that's literally add event listener, okay? And then we're going to say, what are we listening for? We're going to say listen for a click. And then when we do that, we're going to do a function. And then we're going to open that up. So let's stop and pause there. So I've got, first of all, okay, and maybe I can zoom in a little bit here. So first of all, we're looking at the document saying, hey, find all of the things with the class of burger. And then for each of those, what I want to do is I want you to add an event listener to it. We're going to be listening for a click, and then we're going to do some things after you hear a click, essentially, okay? Now, what are we going to do after we hear a click? Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to grab the ARIA expanded value, So I need to know, in order to toggle this value back and forth, I need to know what the current value is. Is it false? Is it true? And then we can take that and we can do things with that data, right? So I want to do const of current value or current val. I tend to not like abbreviating, okay? So I'm just going to do current value. We're going to do a whole thing, right? Equals, okay? Const.current value equals. And I'm going to say this dot, I can get the attribute because aria expanded is an attribute. I can get the attribute by saying get attribute. And I'm going to tell it, what do I want? Aria expanded. So if we pause here, I'm saying, okay, we're going to make a new token called current value. And current value should be equal to the burger's aria expanded attribute. So current value, if we load the page and current value is false, this token will equal false, essentially, okay? It's getting the attribute aria expanded, it's getting the value, it's assigning it to this token right here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new token for the new value, or really the updated value, because when you click it, the value is going to change. It's going to update the value, okay? So I'll say updated value, and because I'm so awesome at this, they're the exact same number of characters, which if you are OCD, it does, the JavaScript doesn't get any better than this, okay? The balance that is in this JavaScript. Okay, I'm joking. It's an absolute joke. You don't have to worry about this side of things. That was random. It was totally random, but I'm going to capitalize. I'm going to cash in on what just happened, okay? All right, so what is the updated value? Well, the updated value, what we're going to do is essentially a comparison. We're going to take the current value. If the current value is equal to false, okay? What are we going to do? Well, we're going to change it to true, okay? And if it's... the way this logic works in my head, I can hardly ever communicate it, okay? And by the way, that needs to be current value, okay? Current value is false. We're going to make it true, else we're going to leave it at false, essentially, okay? So again, we're doing a little comparison. We're doing a little, this is shorthand kind of if-then kind of situation, okay? So we're going to create a new token called updated value. We're going to check the current value. If it's equal to false, we're going to change it to true, else we're going to leave it as false, essentially, okay? Now I'm going to say this dot, instead of get attribute, what we're going to do is set the attribute, because now we have this thing called an updated value, and we can set the attribute. And what are we going to set? We're going to set the aria expanded, and then what are we going to set it to? The updated value, okay? So a lot happening here. We're going to now close this off and close this off. I'm going to zoom back out, and we're going to go see, does this work on the front end? Look at that. You could see the aria expanding from false to true, or I should say updating from false to true. And because our styling is linked to the actual change of the aria expanded attribute, we also get the animation when our thing is accessible. If anything is broken here, it probably is not just styling, it also lets you know, hey, there may be an accessibility issue as well. Not always, like it could be accessible, but the styling is not changing. But it's very obvious that something is broken, right? But if you did it the other way, like I said before, where you like add a class like called active or on or whatever, and you do styling based on that, you could see a visibly working button, but the accessibility could be completely broken. In this case, the only thing that can break, right, like without you noticing, or that's a terrible way to explain it. If something breaks in this setup, it's going to be dramatically obvious, okay? Because if the accessibility doesn't work, the styling is not going to work either, okay? It's like we're forcing its hand, which, again, I think this is the best way to do it. So, guys, I mean, we have achieved the deal. Now, what we need to do is clean it up. We can't leave things the way they are. We've got a lot of work to do to tokenize, to logical properties, all of that. So let's do logical properties first, okay? So we're gonna come down here. This is not gonna change the behavior of anything. Width becomes inline size. Flex direction, gap padding, all that's good. Display width, inline size. Height, block size. Min width becomes min inline size. Min height becomes min block size. These are all logical properties. This is the new modern way to write your CSS, okay? You got to learn this. I've done videos on it before. That's all the logical properties we need to do. The next thing we need to do is start to tokenize. Inline size is the first one. We're going to say burger size. I'm going to come up here, burger size. 28 pixels. I'm just replacing the static value with a token. And you can even come in here and comment tokens, right? And then down here, code, all right? You separate them out. So I've got burger size. What else do I need that's very important? Gap, okay? Let's do burger gap. Come up here. Let's register burger gap as 5 pixels. Okay, so that's good there. Inlines, block size 2 pixels on our span. Burger line thickness. I like line thickness instead of height or width or whatever because it's never clear what it actually is, okay? So it's called the thickness of the line. So we're gonna say burger line thickness, all right? I'm gonna pop in 2 pixels right there. Then we have our background color. What is that? That's going to be our burger color, okay? We're going to come up here, and we're going to say burger color. Drop in that black token, okay? Border radius, 50 VW. I'm going to say that is burger line radius, okay? We're going to come up here, burger line radius, drop that in. Now you might say, hey, you got a line thing and a line thing. Why don't you put those together? I totally agree with you. Let's bump that up a line so that line thickness and line radius are right next to each other. Now I've got this rotate, scale, translate, but I do want to be able to change the duration. So we're going to say burger transition duration. Okay, I'm going to come up. We're going to say burger transition duration. Pop that in, 0.3 seconds. Ease in, out. I don't necessarily need to change the timing function on these, but we can, okay? 45 degrees, I mean, we're making an X. The only thing you can do here is 45 degrees if you're gonna make an X, all right? But what we can do is we can fix this translation. We don't wanna leave that as a static value because if the gap or the line thickness change, guess what's not gonna change? This down here, and you're not going to have an X anymore. What did we say was the formula for calculating this translation? It is, we can just put in the calc right here, okay? We can say var, and we're going to say burger line thickness plus burger gap, okay? Burger gap, right? Burger gap. Perfect, okay? So we have this. Now, we need this to be a negative number. I'm going to do the same exact formula, but I'm going to say times -1, and that's going to make it a negative number. So I've done all of the tokenization now that I need to do. I've got very clean code. I can modify my burger up here. Let's make sure it's still working. Look at this. Look at that, okay? Line, burger gap, burger line thickness, burger gap, burger line thickness, 5 and 2. Let's refresh on the front end. Are we still having an issue there? We are still having an issue there. Okay, translate, calc, burger line thickness plus var burger gap plus var burger gap times -1. I may need a little bit of, there we go. Maybe that's going, I don't know. I'm not a math genius. There we go. Okay. It was doing a negative calc before it was doing the correct addition. It was just an order of operations issue, essentially. But now I'm back to having a functioning burger. But now check this out. Like, check out how easy this is to customize. What if I want to change the gap? I can change the gap and it all reformulates. My X doesn't break, right? What if I want to change the line thickness? So I can come in here and I can say, I want those lines to be thicker. Well, does that break anything? Nope. No, actually, I like that. I like that. That thicker one, I like that, okay? That's fantastic. So what all we're doing, and I've talked about this before over and over and over again, you need to create unbreakable situations. Now, what are we gonna do? We're gonna make this a component, right-click, create component. It's gonna be called burger. We're gonna save, we're gonna exit, and now we have a component where I can literally, here I am on a new page. I'm like, man, I need one of those burgers. I'm gonna add it, bang, boom. And I got a component, and all of my burgers can be updated. There's a single source of truth for them. I can add props for anything I need props for. This is gonna be really, really, really fantastic and really useful. Okay, let me go back to camera. I hope you guys got something, a lot of things actually, out of this tutorial. Again, so much surface area, right? And if you need to, go back and see a part again, that's the beauty of these videos. Go back to that part, watch it in slow motion, whatever you need to do. But again, follow along with this. Do this, build the thing. Even better if you build it in Etch, etchwp.com. Best place to learn by far, best place to do your work by far. But this is just like, don't just watch this tutorial and hit like and move on with your life. You're not really going to learn anything. Build this thing right here. It's not too hard. It's not too big. It's not too complex. You can absolutely do it, and you will learn a lot doing it. I'll be back very soon. Drop a like, drop a comment. See you guys. Peace.